Hello, and thank you for joining us today for OK11's Webinar Wednesday. Good to see quite a few of you are in attendance. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come learn a little bit more about OK11 and the process when it comes to updates and second notices. My name is MG Govia. I'm the Education Outreach Liaison here. And again, I appreciate you all joining. If you haven't used GoToWebinar before, the interface is pretty straightforward. The magic button, if you will, is that orange arrow. If your interface disappears on you at any time, click that orange arrow. It'll expand it back out, and that way you can interact with me by shooting me any questions. I am flying solo, so I will get to all the questions at the end of the presentation, and feel free to ask at any time. I'll just see them when we finish up our information. So if you're not familiar with OK11, who we are Oklahoma's one call system. That means all locate requests are processed through us. We are the communication hub. We are not the locating company, and we do not own or operate any underground facilities. We are just providing information from an excavator out to our member companies so that they can prevent damage to those underground facilities, and hopefully through that keep the excavator safe as well. So our mission is to provide quality underground damage prevention services, and our value statement is delivering excellence through honesty, integrity, and having a highly engaged workforce in a fun and supportive workplace. So how we got established is through the Oklahoma Underground Facilities Damage Prevention Act. That's the OUFDPA, if you see it abbreviated in many of our publications. And it is centered around two major factors. One is our operators of underground facilities should participate in this center. And what that means is they'll register their assets with us with mapping. They'll let us know where they are geographically, and then what personnel to contact when planned excavation is going to take place around those assets. And then for us to be able to loop them in, we need to know when an excavator is digging. So an excavator is required to, by law, to give us notice, no less than 48 hours, not including the date of notification, weekends, and legal holidays before that excavation, so we can alert the member companies to process that request, get out there, throw down paint flags for that excavation project. So the process works like this. It starts with the excavator contacting OK11. You may notice through the years that our verbiage for our marketing has changed. We've gone from calling OK11 to contacting OK11. 75% of all of our locate requests are done on our website, so we promote that. However, you're more than welcome to call 811 if necessary for one of those complicated tickets or something like that. But when you contact us as an excavator, you'll be giving us information of where the dig site's going to be working, the scope of work, what type of work is being done, and then of course contact information. And we're going to process what's called the locate request. So the locate request is going to be created, and then notifications are going to be sent out to the member companies. Those notifications, if you're haven't been following our webinars, we processed over 1 million tickets last year. It was the first time that we received over 1 million. It was quite an increase from the year before. And an average of 6 members are notified per ticket. So that means over 6 million notifications were responded to by our member companies in 2021. That's outstanding. And it looks like we're going to do even more this year. So that's the communication part of it. The member companies are to respond to those locate requests prior to the work to begin date and time. They're going to go out there, mark their facilities using their appropriate colors based on the APWA color code. They're going to communicate with the excavator through mandatory positive response the status of that locate request. And then the excavator is going to then confirm that response before digging. They're going to verify the location of those underground facilities. I like to call this the discovery of the 3Ds. They're going to dig to discover the depth, the direction, and the distance of those underground facilities so that they can expose and support and protect those within the work area. They're also going to make sure that the response has been received by each member. So this goes above and beyond just what the paint and flags has. Maybe some are all clear. Maybe there are some access issues for some that weren't able to get there and throw out some paint. So they'll need to work with that and make sure that. And always wait until the work to begin date and time, the compliant work to begin date and time before doing any excavation. Couple of things to remember: private lines do not get marked through this service. Private lines, the obvious ones are like propane lines, sprinkler systems, things of that nature. Some of the private lines that maybe an excavator is not aware of would be things where the member company or the utility operator turns over services to the property owner. Usually, if a private electrician or a plumber dealt with the installation of that additional electric line or additional gas run, or a plumber for water as well. Usually, where that takes place is where those private lines are. Some member companies may go above and beyond what they're required to do legally, but if a private line is not marked, that's the reason, and you'll need to make a phone call to a private line locating service to see if they can do that. There are some plumbers and electricians and stuff like that may have locating equipment as well. And if you're not aware, OK1 is not a locating service. Like I said earlier, we're the communication hub. We take in these inbound requests from excavators and we send them out to our operators or members, and they're the ones who facilitate that. They may do it in-house with their own employees, or they may send out a third-party locating service such as USIC or Gridhawk or one of the many others that are out there. So we talked real briefly about putting in a locate request. These are the two ways to do so. Like I said earlier, 75% of all locate requests are done through our web ticket entry. The reason is it's easier, it's more efficient, a lot quicker. There was actually a conversation that was had not too long ago that in the time on a 3 to 4 minute hold by calling into us, a well-trained person putting in web tickets could probably put in 2 to 3 locate requests just while in that 4 minutes. So you want to be able to use our web ticket. It's quick, it's efficient, available 24/7. You can be putting tickets in as late as you need to. You'll also have the ability to view and update locate requests from your company within the last 30 days. The mapping will be available if you want to use it, and of course, no hold times. However, if you have a complicated ticket or you're having to give us an emergency request, a second, third notice, demolition notice, damage report tickets, or wildfire notifications, then you will need to give us a call during our office hours, or excuse me, then you will need to give us a call. Our office hours for all normal tickets is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. After business hours, only emergency locate requests will be accepted over the phone, as well as second and third notices and damage reports if needed. So before we talk about second notices and updates, we have to understand a little bit about the ticket itself. So when a ticket is put in, the request is going to be good for 14 calendar days from the work to begin date and time. So what that looks like is we'll go back to November, right? This is when our ticket life had been defined within the law. And so November 1st has happened to fall on a Monday. So it's a little bit easier to illustrate. And so I want to be able to show it this way. So looking here, you can see that on Monday, November 1st, the request is submitted. The earliest time that someone could dig when calling in on Monday would be Thursday, because Monday doesn't count. That's the date of notification. Tuesday and Wednesday would be the 48 hours. Thursday would be the work to begin date and time. The date would be Thursday and the time would be provided to us by the excavator. Then the ticket is good for 14 calendar days. So Thursday the 4th would be day one. As you count through 14 calendar days, you will notice that it expires on the 17th. That's the 14th calendar day of that ticket. Notice it didn't have any exceptions for weekends or for Veterans Day. It just was 14 calendar days, no exceptions. So if work is going to take place beyond the 17th, then an update ticket wouldn't be necessary. And so that update is letting us know work is going to take longer than ticket life and for markings to be refreshed. So that ticket would need to be called in on the 15th, and that would give 2 business days, not counting the data notification, for the work to begin time at midnight of the 18th, so that there is no lapse in ticket life. And then it goes on for another 14 calendar days. So hopefully that helps understand at least the basic understanding of what a normal ticket is and then the update process. I will go in a little bit more detail here in just a second. So when it comes to notification ticket types, there's a couple to remember. So the umbrellas, if you will. A compliant locate request is when the 48 hours, not counting the data notification, has been provided, and that notice has been provided. You're complying with the law. A non-compliant is any short notice locate request that is not complying with the law because there's no endangerment to life, health, or property, right? So calling in today is Wednesday, and I say I'm going to call and I want to dig tomorrow. I am not giving the member companies their 48 hours, not counting the data notification, to mark the facilities, so I'm not complying with the law, right? If I dig prior to 48 hours, not counting today, then I may be liable for any damages that occur. An emergency locate request is exactly what it sounds like. There's an emergency. There's an endangerment to life, health, or property, and so a short notice is necessary. I need to dig right now. And because I'm needing to dig, that emergency locate request will go out. It will be justified because of the reason. Someone's without power, a vulnerable citizen's without power, erosion, uh, cattle is getting out, whatever the case may be. It's an emergency situation. I'm digging right now. And so that will be submitted as a short notice ticket that should be responded to by our member companies. And then there's damage reporting. Damage reporting is mandatory, mandatory in that anybody who causes damage should contact us as well as the facility operator to let them know the damage so that it can be reported, repaired, those kind of things. So that communication starts with us. So below these umbrellas, if you will, are specialty requests. And so those specialty requests begins with update tickets, demolition tickets, wildland fire and fire breaks, and then second and third notices. So quick overview on all of these. An update ticket, like I said earlier, it extends the life of a ticket beyond the original 14 days. Demolition tickets is a two-step ticket. Once you have permitting to bring down a structure, it's a notice to the member companies to disengage from that structure at least 7 business days prior to the demolition, and then 2 business days, not counting data notification, prior to the actual structure coming down. A dig locate request would be submitted so that lines can be marked for where heavy equipment can go and where any excavation can take place. Wildland fire and fire breaks. This is a emergency locate request. Obviously, a fire may not stay at one location, so we have a broader swath that we can send out locate requests to the member companies in an area. The information will be provided by the person in command of that emergency response, so that they can know where to dig fire breaks and things of that nature. So again, it is a specialty request. So if you receive them as a member company, you can protect your facilities from those fire breaks being dug or from the fire itself. And then the person who's requesting it would be the person in command, so they can know where to dig those fire breaks. And then second or third notices. This is courtesy notification back to a member company when they have not responded to a locate request within the time frame for the work to begin, date and time. And so how do you know when to put in a second or third notice? It starts with mandatory positive response. So real quick, mandatory positive response is a responsibility of all 3 stakeholders in the locate process. One is the member companies. Member companies are the locating, are required to provide positive response. That means they have to say, paint and flags are on the ground. I had access issues. It's all clear, whatever that case may be, so that the excavator is aware of the status of that locate request. And then the excavator is responsible for checking the status of that mandatory positive response. Go and look at that ticket number. Make sure that all the companies have responded. If they haven't responded to it, put in that second notice. Is the easiest way to go into it, but I'll give some examples here in just a moment. And then OQA 1, our responsibility is to keep track of this communication so that we know who's been where and that you can move forward. So here's what a positive response may look like. So this is using positive response has been around for a while, but it's only been mandatory since November of 2021. But this is all year before that. It's where here in this area, Oklahoma Wastewater, their response was provided. It's been marked, the facility located and marked at site, and then OG&E is not providing positive response, right? So it's an opportunity for you to look at this stuff, and then ONG below said it's an all clear. So a couple things to keep in mind when looking at that positive response. If somebody has not responded before the work to begin date and time, let us know. One other thing about positive response, before I go to the next thing, is once all member companies have positively responded to your locate request, you're going to receive an email saying, hey, your ticket's not valid until such and such work to begin date and time. However, you have received response from everybody. If you have not received response from everybody, then 5 hours prior to your work to begin date and time, you'll receive an email giving you a status of who has responded. And so that way, when you get to the work site, if necessary, you can have a heads up of who to call in that second notice on. So, second notice ticket. Like I said earlier, it is a courtesy notification that a company hasn't responded prior to the work to begin date and time. So because you've already waited as an excavator the 48 hours, not including the date of notification, or more, depending on when you said you were going to begin work, you can now provide the time of notification. So if I show up and I'm supposed to be digging at Thursday at 8 a.m. and I get there and it's 8 o'clock and there's a company that hasn't responded to me, if I can give that company 4 more hours and I say, I'm going to start digging at noon, that's giving that courtesy notification. It gives that opportunity for that member company to get out to you before noon. And it's also smart on your part as an excavator to have that documentation saying, I'm doing all my due diligence to prevent damage. I waited the required time initially. I waited an additional 4 hours by giving a courtesy notification, and I am trying to do everything I can to prevent damage. There's a lot more that you can do when it comes to due diligence. I always suggest taking plenty of pictures. If you see any visual indicators that they're like, there's a telephone pedestal and a telecommunications company hasn't been out there, obviously your due diligence to take pictures, make sure that you're showing that you're potholing, finding the 3Ds, like I said earlier, of what could be in the area, so that if damages do occur, because accidents happen, that you can show that you are trying to do everything you can to prevent that damage. Okay. Second notices are beneficial to our excavators. Use them not only as a CYA move, but also to show that due diligence in all aspects of it in case damages do occur after the work to begin date and time. So when do you use an update ticket? An update ticket is extending the life of the ticket. It's you've worked in the area. You know that the project's going to take longer than 14 calendar days, so you'll extend the life of that ticket. There's not going to be any change of scope of work. In other words, if you say you're digging in the backyard, you can't update the ticket and then give us the front yard, right? You can't make it bigger or smaller. It's an update and an extension of what has already been previously marked. If the markings disappear during your work site or your project, let us know. That way we can refresh the markings for you or have the locators go out and refresh the markings. Just a reminder, an update ticket is a new 48 hours. And some of you may be asking about the markings. Hey, it's not your fault that the weather got a hold of them or whatever that case may be, but the locators will be responding to everybody in that area where the weather affected that. And it is in the law that a excavator is responsible for preserving markings. So if the markings get away from you for whatever reason, the locators will have a new 48 hours, excluding the day of notification, weekends, and holidays, to get that area refreshed for you. So if the markings are not visible for you and damages do occur to a facility that was previously marked, that it's not good. I think I say this almost every webinar. I'm not a lawyer, but you want to be able to justify all things that happen. If there's not any markings and the member company didn't have an opportunity to protect that underground facility, calling that update I know it stands to lose some time, but if the markings aren't preserved, you want to make sure that your damages don't occur when there isn't any markings. That brings us to the new information to the law in November of 2021. Another thing that got added to the law is about fraudulent requests. And this is just simply saying that excavators may be liable to the operator for the cost of locates if excessive and unreasonable locates are submitted when no excavation is taking place, or if an emergency request isn't justified as an endangerment to life, health, or property. So let's talk about that for a second. The excessive and unreasonable locates. This is typically the third or fourth update on a locate request where work is not taking place. So I want to stress the importance of excessive and unreasonable. If I put in a locate request and I work for an electric company and I say I'm going to be putting in, 10 poles and the job should take me less than a week, and I put in the locate request and then the weather's terrible and I'm not able to get out there and I have to update the ticket because I am going to get to it on day 16 instead of day 12, that's fine. That's reasonable. You couldn't work. The weather prevented you from it. Now, if I'm that same electric company and I go, yeah, we're going to put in 10 poles soon, and then I've been updating it for 3 months and I said that it would only take us a week, that's going to be viewed as excessive and unreasonable. You to get rid of this waste that's in the system of work not taking place, locate requests. If the locator is not out there marking work that's not taking place and have the ability to only mark the work that is taking place, hopefully it'll improve our on-time metrics for those locating companies or the member companies themselves to make sure that work can be done by our excavation companies. So you want to make sure that if you have a period of time that's going to be longer than 14 calendar days where no shovels are going in the ground, no digging is going to take place, go ahead and let that ticket expire. Once it ends, you can just put in your locate request at least 2 business days, not counting the day notification, weekends, and holidays prior to resuming that area. I get a lot of questions about right now. I haven't clicked on the questions thing, but I can already tell you, I get a lot of questions about, hey, what if I have to go back to that area and I don't know when, or it's part of a larger project? All I have on that is being able to justify why it's reasonable and it isn't excessive. So if you do know you're going to go back but you can't justify like within 14 calendar days, then I would recommend it's letting it expire. It's going to save a lot of headaches down the road. If you are leaving a ticket active for a potential emergency request, that's not the same thing. That's just having an active locate request, but it's not showing that you're digging because of an endangerment to life, health, or property. An emergency request is a ticket type, so it's already available for you. So a couple things to keep in mind on the no work taking place request. So try to avoid those. I know it's a lot of it takes people out of the automatic updates, right? I'm out here. I know I'm going to be working in this area soon. I just don't know if it's going to be within 14 days. Just try to make sure it's reasonable and use those automatic updates as necessary. The non-emergency emergency request, I hope this one's even more black and white and easier to understand. If you call an emergency request, there's 2 things I ask of you. One, make sure it's justified. If there's a vulnerable person needing electric or gas or water or whatever the case, and there's an endangerment to life or health because of that, totally justified. No questions asked. Get out there and take care of that digging, right? Or there's a street about to be washed out, or just comments like we can all just view it and go, yeah, this is emergency. I understand why you're digging right now. That makes sense. The other thing to keep in mind is time frame. An emergency request is digging that's going to take place in less than 48 hours because there's an endangerment to life, health, and property. If you know that it's going to take 6 hours to get your crew together, to get that part that you need for that repair, to get that piece of equipment that's necessary to dig that particular area, give us a full 6 hours. And by us, I mean the member companies that are going to be responding. Say, yeah, this is an emergency. We are digging in less than 48 hours, but I'm going to give you as much time as it's going to take us, because we're going to ask on the phone, when are you going to begin digging? Just let us know. Give us as much time to pass along to the member company so that they can hopefully get to you before digging starts. Because if I'm at a member company, I'm going to make a phone call immediately, say, hey, I'm going to try to get people out there. I'm going to work on it. But if I've already missed it, if you said, hey, I'm digging in 30 minutes, and I just started making my phone calls to you, and an hour later, there might be a miscommunication, and might assume that you've already started and not being able to get out to you. So give us as much time as possible so that the member companies can communicate with you where those underground lines are. So justification, make sure it is truly an emergency of endangerment of life, health, or property, or justification of time. Make sure that you're giving as much communication to the member companies as possible. So when it comes to all this stuff, damage prevention is going to be a collaborative effort. There's not one of us who is doing more than the other and providing damage prevention, keeping our excavators safe, and hopefully being in communication. So thank you to our facility owners and their locators who are promoting public awareness of where their facilities are and the importance of contacting 811 to start that communication back and forth. Excavators, thank you for utilizing 811. Making sure that you have the underground lines marked, understanding the responsibilities that you have as far as checking mandatory positive response for potholing and testing the site to make sure you can verify the location of those underground facilities, tolerance zone, all those things that you've been taught to stay safe at the work site. And then, okay, when our function, like I said earlier, is to keep that communication back and forth between those industry stakeholders, so we can keep people safe ultimately, and then I'll also prevent damage to those underground facilities. So we covered quite a bit of stuff within that 30 minutes. Let me pull up and see if anybody's asked any questions real quick. Okay. So far, there are no questions, so that's outstanding. If you do have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. You'll see a section that says questions. Just type it in and send it my way. There's quite a few of us in this webinar today, so if I've said anything that is new to you, that you need an explanation of or clarification of, feel free to ask. While I'm giving you time to put in a couple more questions, I'm going to just kind of do some things coming up, give you some heads up. There's ways to stay connected with us. There's always our podcast. If you haven't heard it yet, Digging Deep is our OK1 podcast. You can jump in wherever you listen to podcasts. You can check that out. April is National Safe Digging Month. We have another one coming out in a couple of days, as well as the one most recently. So check that out. On our website, ok11.org, you can see our blog. Our social media is also there. And then our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel, we're going to export all of our webinars, all of our tutorials, or all kinds of stuff, as well as our video of our podcast being recorded, is going to be on there. So you have a way to stay connected even through that as well. And then I have a couple of save the dates for you. Okay, one, we're glad that we can be in person again. Things have kind of opened up. So all of April, like I said earlier, is Safe Digging Month. So we're going to be promoting the utilization of 811, keeping excavators safe, homeowners safe, the general public, as well as preventing damage as best as we can by reminding everybody as the digging season picks back up to always contact OK1, and so we can move there. April 27th, here in a couple of weeks, we will be in Lawton for a safety day event. You can go to our website, you'll see some information there, or okexcavationsafety.com for our upcoming events and register. It is a free day of training. We will have A11 certification, as well as excavation and trenching, safety, a mock line strike, and door prizes and lunch will be provided. So definitely put that on your calendar. In May 2nd, actually, we moved this around a little bit, will be in Enid. So check out our upcoming dates on our okexcavationsafety.com website, and you will get that information of our safety days. So I'm looking over the question options. Nobody else has sent in one. So I do appreciate your attentiveness today. If you do think of any questions or if you have suggestions for future presentations, reach out to me. I'm not going to make it where you have to memorize my name. You can just email the word education@oka11.org. I look forward to helping you out, and we'll get that information to you. If you need more information or if you want some training opportunities for your crews, just let me know. We are excited to work with you to do all we can to improve the damage prevention industry as a whole. So since there are no questions and we're right, oh, hey, one popped up. Okay, this is a very pointed question, so I will kind of break it down. It just says, hey, what are the excavator's rights if a utility owner does not mark their lines or give a positive response? That's a great question, and one that I hope I don't sound like I'm skirting around, but the reason that it's going to sound as such is because I'm not a lawyer. So this is what I want to stress about the importance of due diligence. There's not a time where liability switches, right? A member company or the owner of that underground facility and that excavator both have liability from the beginning in protecting that underground facility and making sure nobody gets hurt. And it never transfers from one to the other. So what happens is when a damages occur or when somebody gets hurt, the judge or the insurance claims or whatever the case may be, they're going to look at it holistically, and they're going to go, what all did that facility operator do to prevent damage and prevent that injury? And then they're going to look at that excavator's responsibility and go, what all did they do to prevent that? Did they know that that member company didn't respond? And by looking at the mandatory positive response and then dug blindly without doing any potholing, without taking any photos, without showing any due diligence, well, then they may not have as much to stand on. The member company, when they did locate, did they take photos? Did they show that the markings were there? And then when that accident happened, markings were not preserved. And so something happened. So again, the only thing I can stress is documentation and due diligence, because those things are going to keep you in front of having an opportunity, or keep you informed, and also have the ability to inform a judge or insurance when it comes to that claim, because we want to be able to keep you safe and those underground facilities safe. So again, hope I didn't sound like I skirted it. Just remember, it's holistically looked at. It's never going to change from one to another. I do recommend those second notices. I do recommend keeping the communication open with the member companies and give them every opportunity. But if digging does happen prior to lines getting marked for any reason, document and show why, or how you're showing due diligence and digging safely around those. So I appreciate that question. I hope that helps out. If you do have any other questions, feel free to email me. Again, the email address is education@oka11.org. Thank you all for your time today. Thank you for doing your part to keep Oklahoma safe, and I hope to see you at our next webinar. Oh, wait, one more question popped in right before I did that. I was just about to click it. Yeah, it's pretty much more of the same, unfortunately, about liability and a positive response status that may not be true. If that positive response status may not be true, the excavator needs to document that, because if it depends on what the documentation says. If the positive response says, hey, we partially located, or we agreed to locate later, or whatever the case may be, document it that you don't have that in writing. Put in that second notice. When you put in that second notice, you can verbally tell our damage prevention agent or a contact center representative that, hey, this status isn't true. This is second notice, required documentation. Again, this is due diligence and CYA moves, right? So put in that second notice saying that that status isn't accurately reflecting it, and that second notice will go back out to that member company. So make sure to use those second notices for that. That's how you respond back to mandatory deposit response if somebody hasn't been out in time, or if there's any error in the response code or information. So hopefully that helps out as well. So, and with that, I don't believe anything else is coming in. I do appreciate everybody's time. Email me if you have any other questions. I appreciate you all. You have a good day. Thank you.